Democrat John Fetterman, who suffered a stroke in May, defeated his Republican opponent, Mehmet Oz, to flip a key Senate seat in Pennsylvania. Speaking shortly after his victory was declared, Mr. Fetterman said he was proud of his party's values.
I never expected that we were going to turn these red counties blue, but we did what we needed to do, and we had that conversation across every one of those counties. And tonight, that's why I'll be the next U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania. I'm just so proud of the race that we ran. And, this campaign has always been about fighting for everyone who's ever been knocked down that ever got back up. We bet on the people of Pennsylvania, and you didn't let us down. And my promise to all of you is I will never let you down. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much.
Well, one notable result was the race for governor in Florida. The Republican Ron DeSantis was re-elected with a significantly increased majority. Mr. DeSantis has ambitions to run for president in 2 years' time, possibly challenging Donald Trump for the nomination. Well, for the very latest, let's cross live to Washington and speak to Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham. Good to see you, Eric. Just sum up for us what we know so far and what it means for America, bearing in mind that the final result may not be known for days.
Yeah, that's right, Charles. But look, going into this election, it was thought that Republicans would do very well, not only at the national level in determining the outcome of the House or the Senate, but also when you look at a lot of these state races as well, gubernatorial elections, control of the state house in Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And what we saw, Charles, over and over was that Democrats simply overperformed and they really were energized and they turned out. Now, of course, going into this election as well, this was a battle of two different visions and themes. We know Republicans ran on the economy and inflation. Democrats ran largely on abortion. And it appears as though the issue of abortion not necessarily won out, but it certainly helped stave off that red wave that many thought would happen. And also, Charles, just to give some context of midterm elections, going all the way back to 1853, it is averaged that the party in power loses on the House level about 53 seats and on the Senate level about 13 seats. Well, based on what we're seeing in this race so far, it looks like, based on where things stand right now, Democrats are set to gain a net of at least one Senate seat. And it's projected that if the Democrats can take control of the House of Representatives, their gain would only be a net 13 seats. So this is actually a very huge win for Democrats. And go back to Barack Obama. Remember, in his first election, he lost 63 seats in the House of Representatives. So Joe Biden looks like he will still have some operating room. And it's still unclear if Democrats or Republicans will be in control of either the House at this moment. And also, just to give some more context, what we also saw last night were state legislatures in Minnesota, Michigan, and Massachusetts. Those all flipped from Republican control to Democratic control. So by any measure or margin, last night was a very good night for Democrats. And what we're seeing today, Republicans are looking at themselves and trying to figure out what this means for the party going forward.
Nevertheless, Eric, the predictions appear to be that the Democrats will lose the House, but by a slimmer majority. What would the loss of the House mean? Would that mean gridlock of different kinds? Just outline for us what we might be seeing there.
You're absolutely right, Charles. If in fact Democrats, if Democrats in fact lose the House of Representatives, we're certainly going to see massive gridlock in Washington. Already, Republicans have said they do not want to continue funding for the war in Ukraine. We do know that there's going to be a massive fight over the debt ceiling next year. We could see U.S. credit rating downgraded once again, much like what we saw during the Obama years. We expect to see a number of investigations into the Biden administration. Already, some Republicans, even before the first votes were cast, were saying that Joe Biden needed to impeach and that they would lead the effort to do so. So a lot of this is on the table. And Charles, it's going to be a very nasty, very divided, very ugly place at a time when, based on the polling data and based on what Americans have said going into these elections, they want a divided government, but they want Democrats and Republicans to work together. I don't think that's the message that we're going to see coming out of Washington in the wake of these elections.
So, going by what you said there, Eric, it's not a positive agenda of the Republicans trying to bring forward their own legislation if they win the House. It's simply trying to stop Mr. Biden from being able to do anything. Is that likely to set them up well for 2024? Because if the Democrats don't have a list of achievements that they can take to the voters, then it'll be much harder for Joe Biden, if he chooses to run again, to be re-elected as president.
That's absolutely right, Charles. That's a very good observation. But also remember, President Biden has gotten an enormous amount done in these first 2 years in office. So he's going to have an enormous amount that he will be able to run on. We're pulling the United States out of the longest war in its history, the passing of monumental legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure legislation, something that no one has ever been able to do, reducing drug prices overall, especially for senior citizens, putting the first Black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. He's got a lot that he can say that he has done. Defeated COVID. And so he will be able to run on that. The question is, what will Republicans have to run on and say that they have done in the 2 years since they have taken control of one chamber of Congress? That is going to be an issue. And that is going to be something that, again, voters are going to have to determine what they want. And also, we do know that there's someone out there who is planning to make a very, very big announcement next week. We haven't talked about him, but he stands large over all of this. And will the party have something to set up to allow him to be able to run on if, in fact, that happens?
And that person shall remain unnamed at the moment. Eric, thank you very much indeed. Eric Ham, Arise US correspondent, talking to me there from Washington.